I am Gabby Lubin, and I own Spark by Gabby, which is the Instagram that I'm on now. But my personal one is Gabby L Wellness. And I am a new entrepreneur. I've been in the entrepreneurial fitness space for now a year and a half, which is new. And if you haven't noticed, is the exact amount of time that we've been in COVID. So I am definitely a COVID story, but am
Yes.
loving this new space. And founded Spark thinking about what I didn't have as an educator. And I can keep it
Okay.
at that for now, and I can go more into the specifics later. But yeah, it's a virtual fitness platform that
Okay.
also embeds mindfulness. So I'm not a Pilates original person like you are, but I do a lot of other formats, and we have Pilates too.
Thank you. I think it's a compliment that you think that I'm originally a Pilates person. I'm like
I don't know.
fitness, smart conditioning. No, that's good. I mean, like when you dive into something so much that people think that that's your main gig, that's a good,
Yeah,
that speaks volumes to how much focus you're putting on the thing.
yeah.
For example, I never would have guessed that your platform, what you're doing is a COVID baby. Like, it looks professional and organized enough, like it's been around before COVID. Like it seems like it looks like it has its roots in.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It is a COVID baby, but it is a real baby that feels less like a baby. I think it's more of like a toddler at this point if you're gonna put
Mhm.
like an age on it.
Right, right, right.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it's something that's been in my mind for a long time. So when the moment came to actually start doing something, and I'm sure some other people can relate to this, the pieces were put together and you just kind of go at it. So
Right.
true entrepreneurial spirit, which has been awesome.
For sure. So, so explain more about the pieces that came together because what we see pieces coming together all the time, and then sometimes we ignore them, and sometimes we jump on them and they're wrong, and then sometimes we jump on them and we're like, oh, that's exactly what I need to be doing. So, how did you? What were those pieces, and how did you know you were supposed to actually listen to them?
Yeah, great question. All right, so here's kind of my origin story, and because it's
Yeah.
all one and the same of who I am and who Spark is, essentially. So I was a teacher, and I taught in classrooms in DC charter schools for 5 years. And in my fourth year, I was getting really, really obsessed with spin. I loved spinning. I loved the endorphin rush. I loved moving to the music.
Yes.
This is why, like, I wish I were a dancer because I feel like a dancer on the bike, but when you get off the bike, not so much.
Right.
um, so I really enjoyed it, and so I decided to start teaching it.
Okay.
And I taught for my full fifth year in the classroom, so teaching both kids and adults on the bike. And as I got to like a midpoint of that school year, I realized I was living for my spin classes and I was not living for
Yes.
the students. And
Yes.
as a parent, I'm sure that things happen. We get to this
Mhm.
point of burnout and we're
Mhm.
not feeling enthralled or excited by the thing that originally excited us. And so
Yes.
I realized that I needed to change something in my experience. I needed to take a step back. I needed to do something different. So I finished that school year, which I'm proud of because it was not easy. And maybe not the best for my body or mind, but it was the best thing for
Mhm.
kids at least.
Yes.
And I decided to teach fitness.
Mm.
And I was telling this to someone last night. It was back in the day where I still didn't think of fitness as a real career. I'm going to be honest. And I think a
Right.
lot of us have been in that space. And that's something that I'm trying to, try to tease out in my more professional peers who
For
have more
sure.
typical jobs. It is a real
Mhm.
profession and you can do it for a living.
Yeah.
And so I decided to do it for a temporary amount of time, just a year, because I wanted to go to grad school. And I got a few months later, I guess 8 months or so, I get into grad school. 2 weeks later, the pandemic hits. And
Mm.
at that time, I didn't own anything. I was an instructor. And I had to come home that night and think about, like, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to
Right.
spend my time? What motivates me? How are people feeling? And I decided that same day, so it was Monday, March 16th, the first day of the DC lockdown, at least. Um, Made a little Canva post, I sent it out to all my friends, and we had our first class. And it was a
Okay.
HIIT class with meditation at the end, which was different. because you don't think of those two things together.
Right. Yes.
They seem
It's
like
true.
opposite things.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching head classes for that year too, so it wasn't just spin that I was teaching, so I knew what I was talking
Yes. You didn't make that
about.
up. Like, yeah.
Didn't just make it up,
Yeah.
no. And it was really successful, and people felt really driven by it. And so that was the moment where I started to like listen to my instincts, and I taught class the next day. I taught class the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It became this thing that happened
Yes.
throughout the week. And by week 2 of the pandemic, which like there's so much uncertainty, but I also had so much time because I wasn't teaching classes in
Right.
person.
Yeah. Right.
Um, I just kind of went for it. And one of my mentors, who is now my former boss, he shared he shared this like expectation of me just like getting rid of my perfectionism, because that's something that I was definitely brought up with, a lot of perfectionism and trying to make sure that
Right.
I dotted my I's, crossed my T's, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, you know what? Ask for forgiveness. Just try it out. Do what makes you feel good, and go and see like where this is going to take you. It is okay if you
Yes.
don't teach for us. It is okay if you're asking for Venmos for a little bit. Like, just see what happens. And I think that
Right.
really opened up the door to exploring something that I didn't think I would do for 5 or 10 years.
Amazing. Yeah.
And it's been awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Like, isn't it like, I think about like what you said, like ask for forgiveness. Just the fact that someone from the outside knows just enough about us to know that someone has to give us permission to do the thing which we know we're capable of doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's tough because we're on social media right now. Social media, especially Instagram, is just like a lot of affirmations and sometimes
Yeah.
lack of affirmations. And that's something that like I've definitely been personally working on as someone who like works to be in this field, needing Instagram. But
Yes.
we've been like, our culture asks us to do a lot of things, and one of them is make sure that we have the permission to do what we're supposed to do, or have the all of the accreditations and expectations and everything set up before you start something. And
Yes. Qualified and endorsed and right lineage and right heritage and right
yes,
pedigree and right degree and yes.
yes, which like is good. Some of those things are necessary, and like you shouldn't make everything up from literally nothing, but
Right.
like,
Yes. You can't just go off YouTube all day. I get it. Yes.
no,
But
but
yeah.
like falling forward and like not being afraid to fail is
Hmm.
something that I think a lot of us have learned in the pandemic, because we haven't had a choice because things are
Right.
changing so
Yeah.
much. But it's been a great personal exploration, which I'm sure you have felt in some way over the last year and a half
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah, I have. And as I was doing a workout this morning, I was thinking about the fact that I don't have an online platform for workouts. I
Mhm.
don't have a full like bricks and mortar like lease or mortgage on a place and stuff like that. I have a dedicated space and a micro business. And at this point in my life, it's like if I really wanted that, I would have it by now.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are watching it, if you feel like the next logical step in your fitness career is to own a business, to own a physical studio, or to have an online platform, or to have whatever it is, if it's not in your heart to do, don't do it because it's the next logical step. Do it because that's what you're supposed to do. Like, one of my clients is like, he's a mortgage guy. He's like, why don't you own a building? Like, you could do, like, he looked around, he's like, you could own this. Like, you could totally do this. And I was like, I've been doing this long enough that if I was supposed to do it, I would have had it by now.
The path isn't linear,
The
and the
path isn't
path,
linear. Right.
it doesn't have to be the same for everyone, which is tough to remember in a comparison culture.
I like being called the comparison culture.
It's true.
It is. So then what, okay, so I am going to play the comparison culture thing for a minute. There are a few on-demand platforms out there.
Mhm.
So what made you think that we needed another one in what you do?
Such a good question. So there are more than a few. There are a bajillion, and they've gone in and out of fad, and who knows?
Right.
Can't
Yes.
can't I can't predict people's behaviors anymore. It's all new.
Statistically, there's a bajillion. Is that the
Yes.
number? Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
I recognize that. And I also was recognizing a need in my former self. As an educator who burned out, when I
Hmm.
experienced fitness and teaching fitness, I was starting to notice this feeling that was unlike anything else, which I'm sure many of you, if you own or if you
Absolutely.
teach, like it's just this addictive feeling of endorphins and feeling like confident and feeling XYZ, whatever, sleeping
Yes.
better, whatever, any of the benefits that you're feeling, those things.
Yes.
Um, and then there's something magic happened. When I started pairing it with the mindfulness component and all the research behind mindfulness, I felt as if I had like unlocked something that I had never imagined in my own body and mind. And it's not something that is
Amazing.
easy to describe. You kind of have to feel it in some ways.
Yep.
And pairing that with the like deep difficulties within education and the system of education, not just how it feels to be an individual in education, but the system of how
Yes.
we don't support educators, particularly in the US. There was a need there, a need for people to feel supported and a need for people to feel unlocked. And so what I'm doing with Spark now is it's niche, is it's a platform for educators, for them
Okay.
to experience this feeling and to do it at a low cost to
Hmm.
themselves or provided from their school. And so we're thinking about it in a more systems level
Amazing.
approach and how
Yes.
we can change education. I got big goals.
That's it. And and I wanted to give you a moment to just boast in that. And the fact that there are a bajillion people out there, they still aren't doing exactly what you are doing with it.
Yeah, and it's that differentiator of like how we do it. So the class, like even a Pilates class might use a little bit more mindfulness, but a spin class never really does.
Hmm.
Even
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
a competitor, like a Soul Cycle, they have part of that, but they're not actually teaching you mindfulness or teaching you like how to be addicted to something. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
We don't have to dive too deep into the comparison game there, but
Yeah. No.
um,
No,
so
and
we're
actually,
doing,
sorry, can I just pause it for a quick second? So
yeah,
that this is where I'm comfortable with going to the comparison thing because we're not shooting something down,
no,
but I want us to lean into looking at what makes us unique,
yes, the differentiators.
right? There,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and those are two different things. Unless sometimes we push that too far away. So, well, no, actually, we could celebrate differences. We don't have to just
Yeah,
ignore differences. We don't have to compare in a
yeah,
negative sense,
I appreciate that.
So, yeah.
I like maybe you can relate to this too. I don't know if I expect almost any founder in fitness overall um, has experienced something and realized in teaching for that person or that space or that format that that is not the way you want to do it. And you see a better way to do
Mm.
it. You see a better way to make change and improvements. You were talking about this last night on Brain, correct?
Yeah, I was. And that was a conversation I had with Nicole. Funny enough, in the little chat there, Nicole Kennedy, she's opening a studio and a new studio and stuff like that. And that was the conversation we're having about how do you create a space where your team members can feel like they can have full expression of who they are
Yeah,
while under your vision so you're all growing together. Then you
yeah,
don't have employees, you have people who are all growing their own individual vision and your personal vision for your space at the same time. That's a sweet spot. Like if you can find that, like you're in a really good spot. And it looks like you're doing that with the people that are on your team for Spark too.
I think so. And I think
Yeah.
it's just because I've been able to find these gems of human beings. Like I am obsessed with my team. I think they are just phenomenal. From like educators to activists to folks like Jenna, who are, OG people in their field that are
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel and think differently. Like it's really awesome to see what happens when we can come together and celebrate
Yes.
this space of creativity because
Mm.
I felt stifled in other spaces sometimes before, not
Okay.
because not because I had to go by the expectations necessarily of the format, but just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they didn't have the opportunity to look at other people and what they were doing and how they were thinking about the equation, just literally because of
Interesting.
space sometimes.
Yeah. 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 That's fascinating. You know, one of the old spaces that I used to work in, my colleague here who runs this facility and myself both worked in another building, another big box gym before.
Yeah.
And while I was working for them, I applied for another role within the building and I wasn't successful in getting that.
Mm.
And I got offered an opportunity to work for the city of Mississauga,
Mm.
took that role, and life kind of went on from there. And then in reflection, after I got that job, after I didn't get the job with my old gym, someone said to me, kind of off the record, you know, that role was too small for you. Like your vision was too big for that role.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really nice compliment to say, like, okay, that's good that you could do that, but that role is not going to give you the full expression of who you are.
Yeah.
Whereas the job that you end up getting was closer to that or fuller in its experience.
I couldn't agree more. I had a similar, slightly different experience, not as just like with putting when I was transitioning out of the classroom, I knew I had to get another fitness job other than just teaching spin. And
Yes.
I was really obsessed with this, definitely glorified version of fitness, I would say. So it was back when boxing, Rumble was like a huge fad. I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't going to get in to teach at Rumble, but there was another studio that was similar in
Yes.
the DC area. And I worked so hard. I worked my ass off to be an instructor there,
Hmm.
taking classes, talking to instructors, talking to the owner,
Just
like all
working the
this stuff,
system. Yeah. Yeah.
working it, working it. And I didn't, to be fair, like boxing was very new for me. So I was also working on the trade. I
Right.
loved it though. Like the athlete
Yeah.
in me was obsessed with it.
Right.
And after I auditioned, they told me no. And it
Mm.
was, I can't, let me tell you about this moment. It was the week that I had, this is probably like the biggest, second biggest failure in my life, I would say. It was the week that I had to tell my principal that I was not
Hmm.
coming back to school the next year.
Yeah.
She hands me my offer letter. I like see the number, which I mean it's teaching, it's not that great, but in comparison to the year before, I was like, oh, it's money. There's
Right.
something.
Right.
You want me. Yes.
Right.
And I tell her no, crying, all that stuff. It was a tough one. I
Mm.
still hadn't I hadn't secured the another job. And that's 2 days later, I got the rejection from the boxing studio.
Oh,
And I was like,
yeah.
my dream is crushed. I'm never going to make it. How will I
Right. Because that was
succeed?
the only pathway to get there.
The only path.
Hmm.
And it turns out that the studio that I started to work for, Sweat DC, is the mentor who told me to ask for forgiveness and allowed
Yes.
me to go into this path of literally creating the
Yes.
space that I have now.
What is what is the phrase that you would tell yourself starting out in the fitness industry? That was the question last night. So,
Yeah.
in our Brink panel last night, Jenna closed out by saying, you know, now at this stage in our fitness careers, what would we go back and tell ourselves in our first year, first day on the job?
Yeah.
Um, what was your response to that? I'll tell you mine in a second, but like, what was your response to that?
I don't like the language that I use, so I'm gonna change it slightly.
Yeah, this is your do over because this is my do over too.
It's a
Yes,
do-over, yes.
yes.
Um uh Man, it's a quote that I'm gonna misquote here, but be open to like the change in path
Hmm.
and no, it's yeah, we'll be open to the change of path. There's a better quote that I need to go back and
Yeah,
find. And I'm
you
gonna
told it.
message it to you.
You totally nailed it. Yeah, yeah,
But it's
yeah.
really just like don't expect the expected. Expect that change is going to happen. Expect that your path will
Yes.
not be the way that you planned it to. And guess what?
Hmm.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Absolutely.
What about you? Do
Mine
over.
was my do over. Mine was take more risks.
Mm,
And that's what I said last night. I just said take more risk, full stop. But if I was to expand on it, I would have said what you just said a minute ago. Like, you think that this is the path, but it might be this path over there. So just jump, just do it anyways. And if you mess up, just ask for forgiveness or say, or just say like, hey, I made a bad call on that, or this is the direction we're going now, or just kind of just disappear in the middle of the night and just do something different. Like, and there's sometimes you think that the world is watching you,
Yeah.
and they're really not. Like, you're just doing your own thing, and it'll take a while before people catch up with the momentum of what you're doing. And actually, I was talking to my wife last night. She's out of town right now, and she was asking how Brink went and how the networking thing went last night. I see Air Control Employees just came in, and Carrie Miller's here, and some other people. So when my wife was asking me, like, how was it last night? I said, oh, it's super fun. That speed networking, that blue button's like crack cocaine. Like, you can't, like, you were saying, okay, I'm not gonna do this again, but okay, one more hit. Let me just, and and you keep doing that. But now it's so funny how the first time doing that networking, I was a pen and paper, like, hey, how's it going? Whatever. I'd love to have you in core conversations. It'd be so fun to have a chat like that. And I had to explain what it was. And then this time going through it, I'm like, I've been meaning to talk to you, Jessica, or meaning to talk to you. Like, I'd love to have you on. And people are like, yes, I'd love to. I've been watching you for a while. It'd be my honor. And there's a sense of like, I'm so honored that people are recognizing that this is something that we're celebrating, all of us, and people now know about it enough that whereas before I had to introduce myself, and now people are familiar with the thing I'm inviting them to do.
That's amazing. Pat yourself on the back.
It's
Pause. Pat.
yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm celebrating that for a moment because I feel like that is uh, that's respecting the fact that we're being consistent with something,
Yeah.
and that I took a risk on something, and I asked people to do stuff. I don't know how you are with this, but I mean, like, I'm not down with getting rejected every single day, every minute of life, right? So when I say, hi, I'd like to have you on, you can say, no, I don't know who you are. I don't do IG lives. It doesn't work for me. Or you can say yes. And I'm so appreciative of every single yes. And we're still here because people keep saying yes. So I'm like, thank you. So I celebrate that, the fact that people are now seeing it because we've been doing this for some time. So thank you, Carrie. You were really open and incredible. Thank you so much.
I can feel that
Yes,
energy. So she's right.
yes, thank you. So that's the
It
take more risk piece.
it's interesting though, because as you were saying that, I'm of course bringing my like negative self-talk back into my mind. I'm like, oh, I tried this thing and I didn't stick through with it. I tried this
Mhm.
thing and I didn't stick with it, or like this thing. And first of all, let me recognize that I have that negative self-talk. And if that happened to you, you are not alone because we all have it. Um, but there is some value in like trying things out and seeing if it fits for you. For example, and I heard you talking about this before I hopped on, but talking about the podcast, something I need to change something up and how I'm using my week, and I want to have more conversations and build connections with educators. I'm very excited about it. IG Live is not their thing. I'm not going to expect them to come on Instagram,
Mhm.
but I've been toying around with, whether or not Spark should have a podcast, whether we should dive into really making some meaningful relationships in that way. And it's just exciting to see that there are more ways to do that in this
Yes.
new technology world. It's cool.
Yeah. Can you still hear me? My
Yeah.
headphones just died. Yeah. So
You
okay.
know, AirPods have a life of its own.
Well, I have to say, like these were dependable, but I don't think that they knew that they were going to be used 5 days a week, like for
Oh,
18 months straight. So
I feel that. I got them the second week of the pandemic, and a few months ago they died from
yeah,
seven days a week, almost 24/7. It's pretty bad.
right.
We
Yeah.
might have ear cancer later, but we'll ignore that for now.
That's hopeful. Okay. So I apologize for all the echo and the noise in the background from the gym and stuff, but we'll just go with that anyway. Um, yeah. So that's what I was gonna say with that. Like taking those risks and like doing that. Like I mean, we just have to just do it. I think like that's one of the things with this pandemic and the quarantines and the lockdowns is that everyone's kind of in the same spot where people are trying to like kind of floundering around and figuring things out. So it almost gave space for everybody to make their mistakes and to do those little trials and not have a polished product out there. Just get a product out there. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Make your pivots and move forward with your life. So I liked this climate. Like we were talking about that last night. Like you mean like I'm making up ground now because it's like this open season and it's like this wild west of and whatever you want to do, you can try it now because everyone's in a position where nothing is polished. Throw it out there, see how it works.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to realize that that is possible. And I do think that COVID helped us accept more of that, maybe, or just like have less inhibitions as we dive
Yep.
into that space, which is awesome. But you know what has I've been really, it sounds like you and I have both been very driven in pandemic times. And I just want to acknowledge that not everyone has been there. And maybe now we're getting that motivation, that drive back, or winter has changed it again. Like everyone's gone in this ebb and flow of how they're feeling emotionally and physically. And what I have not done enough of, and what I was taking away from our conversation last night, is doing more pauses. I've been so like set in this like not tunnel vision because I'm trying to observe, but so set in this way of like trying to make progress and create that I
Yes.
don't give enough time to pause and to reflect. So
Mhm.
I'm excited for you to journal, and I'm
Yes.
excited to take some time this weekend myself.
Yes. The so what do you do to rest, to play, to recharge
Yeah.
away from the things that's your main game?
Well, it's funny because I do feel like my practice is a lot of that, which is wonderful. There's a lot of things that I do behind the scenes for Spark that's on the computer, or like, having conversations or interviewing, whatever. That's not
Right.
stuff that fills my cup necessarily. But teaching, like this morning, I taught a class. It's our set/finish the week class, and it is a class where you journal and you set an intention.
Yes.
You do a little bit of yoga, and it's more like mindful movement, slow pace stretching. And then we do a longer meditation, which we call mindfulness,
Okay.
for the more secular term. And then we journal at the end. And that
Great.
practice has saved me for this last year. Saved
Yes.
me. And if I didn't do it twice a week, even though I'm teaching to other people, like it's
Hmm.
filling my cup. It's totally filling my cup. So that's one thing. Um, I don't know. I tried to get creative. I really want to do a pottery class. This is so random, Martin.
Yes.
I need to do a pottery class. This is like where my mind needs to go. It's just like learn a new skill. And
Yes.
now that I'm telling you, I'm going to have to do it. So this is my
Right.
holding me accountable.
Well, okay, now this is the thing too. So, Gabby, I love to mention pottery
Yeah.
because in our industry, everybody, it is so dangerous because we're doing something that we love.
Yeah.
So, because I'm doing something that I love, I can work 600 days straight because I'm teaching movement. I can get on the floor while I'm demonstrating in class. I can sneak my Pilates in there. I can throw down a workout. I could choose to work out with a client. I can do everything to take care of my body within my workday.
Yeah.
I don't need a break.
But
Insert the butts.
well, so I mean, the but, let me tell the rest of the folks the but. So what I did in grad school, and what I've started learning on my own as well, is learning more about like stress relief science, like the science behind it. Think bringing in the neuroscience and like the practical neuroscience. That's what my talk is on today. Usable
Cool.
neuroscience, and there's six. We talk about at Spark. There's six different components of wellness. Physical is only one
Yes.
of the components.
Yes.
And if you spend all your time only using one of your wellness dimensions, you are going to burn out because you
You're not
you don't
replenishing the others.
exactly. You have, in order to like really replenish your body and your mind, you have to change how you're doing things. You have to have different things that you can pull as strategies. Um, and it's cool because I think we like don't give ourselves enough credit for what stress relief actually is. Like talking to your significant other is stress relief. That is a social way of just connecting with someone, and
Yes.
then brushing your teeth without thinking about your to-do list. That is self-care. That totally counts. Um, and I think the more that we are able to actually give ourselves credit for the things that we do, the more
Yes.
fulfilled we are with doing it.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Well, yeah, until we have that moment of like we talked about yesterday, intention with
Yeah.
our actions, then we think that we have to achieve something massive to be able to pat ourselves on the back for
Yeah.
the achievement. But if we change our mindset, that we can celebrate the minutia of the things that we do throughout the day that are actually achievements.
Yeah. So how do you fill your cup other than movement? What are your practices?
Oh man, I'm a classic car guy. I love just getting in my car and just going for a drive. I journal. I have my journal here. I like spending time with my kids. I find those ways like nature. Like I like to just you know whenever I can get a chance to go over to Riverwood or some of the places around here. I try to ride my bike a couple of days. If it's not raining, I try to ride my bike as much as I can.
Yeah.
And take the long way on the way home, sort of thing. Like I just try and I sneak those moments in because I feel like that's super important to have something, outside of Pilates, outside of fitness. So, um, and then also, I also put that on my post. So you'll see all of a sudden, like on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to see Porsche pictures all weekend because like I am out there in my old guy and just doing stuff because it's just, I don't want people to think all I do is just do fitness stuff. Like I have kids, I have a car, I have a wife, I have a journal, I have a morning in Starbucks. Like there are other things that also fill my cup that make me excited about life
Yeah.
besides, throwing down a workout. So
Now, let me ask you an interesting question when it relates to things that you do in social media. Does it fill your, do you feel more fulfilled being able to share how you use your strategies or what you do with your day um, more when you share it? Or do you feel like that takes some of it away?
that's a good question. It is a good question. I think that it depends on what it is, and I'm very conscious of when I use it too. So there'll be gaps. Like if I'm doing something and I want to be in the moment, I'll keep my phone in the car or in my pocket, or I'll leave it behind. But then there's other times when I want to get people to get a window into my life, and I'll post stuff on the hour. So it depends on what the situation is and what the moment is.
Yeah.
But I'm very intentional with my posts in terms of letting people see what's happening in my world, because I want people to connect on more levels than just fitness. So, and I mean, this from being in the fitness world too. If people want to see how I work out, that's great. But I also want people to see I'm a dad. Because if they're a dad and I'm a dad, maybe they're going to want to work out with someone who's a dad because there'll be a connecting point there, right? So if I like plants, I'm not a plant person, but like, if every other picture about plants, then I'm like, oh, plant person, we can talk plants and I can learn Pilates too. Then plant and Pilates becomes your thing. So
Yeah.
I put all that stuff out there for that reason. So it is very intentional. And yeah, I don't know. It depends on what the situation, what the event is and how much of the world I let in.
Mm. It can be tough. Like I think I guess I'm reflecting on what I'm going to do tomorrow. I haven't figured
Yeah.
it out yet. I live outside of Chicago, so I'm like, all right, I really need to get away. And I live outside of Northwestern, so my partner's at business school here.
Cool.
So it's like a little bubble. It's lovely. Their leaves look beautiful right now. I could step out and just walk around nearby or go to a restaurant nearby, but that wouldn't be stepping out of my routine or the daily whatever.
Right.
So I'm trying to decide, like, all right, what would really fill my cup tomorrow? And these are the
Yes.
conversations that I constantly have with myself. Like, what is the best way for me to use my time? Maybe you can help me. It's like museum. Are we going to try? Is ice skating open? Could we find nature even though it's really flat? Like, are we going to go to the water and just like be at the water even though it's
Yeah.
cold?
Yeah. Great. Great. Yeah, or do you not schedule it?
I know, but then I
Which
panic and I do nothing and I drink
right,
beer, which
okay,
is
so
not what I
that's
do.
exactly it. I'm the same. That would be me too. Like if I this is my thought process here. I think this is the cathartic for us.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't plan it, will I wake up on Sunday morning mad because I wasted my day?
Yes, for me. You too, it sounds.
Hi, how are you doing? Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said about planning something and similar to how I was talking about, like what advice I would give to myself, allowing for the possibilities to arise, being open to this path, this path, this path, or even this direction,
Yeah.
and letting that be where you head.
Do you I sometimes I try and tick boxes. And what I mean by that is I feel like I need Martin time, and whether that's going for a drive with my journal and just sitting down somewhere and just writing stuff down and capturing all those thoughts in my head, swirling around. And I feel like I need time with my wife, so that connecting point. I feel like I need time with my kids, intentionally with my boys doing something. I feel like I need some intentional time with friends because I haven't connected with my guy friends in a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm kind of an introvert extrovert. Like when I'm alone, I need people around, and when I'm around people, I need to be alone. So I need to find that spot, right? Like,
Yeah.
I actually on that Myers-Briggs test, I was like 16 introvert and 17 extrovert. Like I literally am just one or the other.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
right. So I feel like whatever it is, I may not have to plan my day, but I want to make sure that I tick those boxes if one of them has been neglected for a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So like whatever the day is, like something has to happen that fills one of those boxes.
No, I totally agree with that. And I have been reflecting on that a lot more in the pandemic, I think, and realized how much of an introvert I was, even though I think I'm an extroverted introvert,
Yes.
which is a strange place to be. But and sometimes, like as a fitness instructor, I was like, I loved being in front of a whole room of people. It was
Right.
awesome.
Yes.
And then I was exhausted for the rest of the day and needed like some me time. Like we couldn't continue that for hours on hours. And in the pandemic, I've had to kind of like pull back on. I mean, we've all had to pull back on how much we're out with a bunch of people, and that doesn't really
Right.
happen as much. And I remember at the very beginning having to retreat back a lot more, even with there was a little bit of social interaction.
Yes.
That all to say that like it's allowed me to be more reflective, and I'm trying to bring in that reflective and intentionality into how I plan my weeks now, and figuring
Yes.
out like, okay, well, if I and I was talking about this yesterday, if I feel drained Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the end of the day, if I feel like not able to do anything but sit and like kind of be in this catatonic zone, which I have been, and I've been kind of in a
Yeah.
space of a little bit of burnout recently, then I need to rethink how I'm spending that time. I need to
Hmm.
change my schedule, and I want to shift the meetings that I have, and then make
Yes.
sure I have that
That's
Wednesday plan
wise.
with a friend. Like you have to intentionally do it, and you
Yes.
have to do it. No one's going to do it for you. Nobody.
Nobody's gonna do it for you. They're gonna keep pulling and keep dragging for that attention. Absolutely. That's full circle to our rest conversation in that it's almost like a personal trainer. You schedule in when your rest is going to be, when your recovery is. And then to my athletes, I'm always saying like your recovery is training.
Mm.
Your recovery part is part of your training. And because we love what we do and because we have those moments of meditation and stuff, it's easy to say, okay, I'm good. But even if we feel like I'm good, we should still schedule in that rest. We should still schedule in those moments of regeneration. Yeah. Yes.
But it's hard. It's just
It is hard.
hard too. I just want to
Yeah,
acknowledge that for people.
absolutely. Yeah. But then at the same time, if you fail, then just try it again tomorrow. Like that's the whole
Yeah.
process. Like, I mean, we're so driven and we're and there's seasons when we have to really drive our business and I can appreciate that. There'll be seasons when it's like you're gonna work 8 days in a row to get 4 days off instead of having that Friday morning to yourself every single week. So there's seasons for everything. And I think that we need to give ourselves permission to acknowledge the season that we're in, to embrace that season, and then learn to say no to people when that season's over.
Yeah. Mm. I feel like that's the bow. I don't know if we can go any further than that, because like that's our takeaway message. Not like having that reflection, compassion for yourself, and knowing when it's time to drive and knowing when it's time to pause. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
love that.
Yeah.
This has been
I think,
awesome.
thank you. Yeah, I think it has been too. Can you just talk real quick about what you're talking, like, can you give us like a quick teaser on like what you're talking about at Brink?
Yeah. So burnout is something that I am very passionate about,
Mm,
in that it's what I've experienced a few times. So the talk today is burnout and why you matter now. So thinking about how us as helping professionals, and us as in like teachers, because that's who we serve, and then also people in the fitness field, the movement profession, why
mhm.
it's so important for you to take that time for you and to be reflective about how you use your time so that you can support others. So filling your cup, like we talked about
Yes.
yesterday as well.
Yeah,
So
they came out
important.
yesterday a lot. So I'm
Yeah.
so excited how like to see how that ties together.
Yeah.
How can we support you? Like what's next for Spark?
Yeah, I saw a few people did this, but would love to have y'all follow us so that you can just see what we're up to. We support educators. So if you, like, I'm talking pre-K through 12th grade educators. If you are an educator or if you know an educator, please, please, please send them our information so that we can support them now. It is not easy right now as a teacher. People are quitting. People are feeling very stressed. They're in survival mode. If
Yes.
you know anyone in this space, you see it, or you haven't talked to them, and that's why.
Yes.
And so our purpose right now is really just to get the message out that there is something that is built exactly for your needs to help bring you out of that space of burnout, so that you at least can survive this school year, so you can get to
Amazing.
that next week. And it's cheap, and we want to make sure that we're supporting anyone who is interested in it. So yes, thank you for
Awesome.
sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. So people, if any of your clients are burnt out teachers and you're just giving them everything to just keep them holding on, this is a great resource for you. I've had so many teachers in the past where like they're just happy to be there.
And they don't make a
Yeah.
lot of money. They don't have a lot of time. Like fitting in even a little bit of extra well-being for them with a community like with like-minded people is really important. So appreciate that, Martin. What do you have next going on? How can we support you?
Well, break this weekend. That's
Yes.
all my focus. I feel like that's the thing I'm just like zeroed in on. I just want that to be successful for the people in the room.
Yeah.
You know, these core conversations. If you know anyone who hasn't been on yet, tap your friends. Let's celebrate and just amplify all the voices of the amazing people that are in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, that's the main thing for me. It excites me the most in my day, this 1 hour. Um, I have my online applies classes. The studio is doing great. Like referrals are coming in. All that stuff is good. Like this was saying last night. I feel like I'm grateful. I feel it for people who have had a tough go.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, I feel like I've had a great go, and I want to help people just be encouraged and know that they're seen and heard and they belong, and I want to use the space to continue to amplify those voices. So
Yeah. That's
that's
awesome.
what's up.
Also, Martin, I forgot to share this, but if you know, or if anyone who's watching knows of a yoga instructor or spin instructor that might be driven by this message of what we're
Mm,
doing, we're looking to hire two new folks. So would love to open up the floor to people who are current or former educators, or who just really want to be able to make that impact. So
nice. Okay,
yeah.
cool. If you could put that in the little comment section when this repost comes up, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And yeah, and then and we'll make sure that happens. Awesome.
Yeah. So good connecting with you. We're gonna have to do it again soon.
Yes, absolutely. So all the best on your talk and on your breakout sessions and stuff.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll see you all weekend.
Sounds good. All right. Have a
Awesome.
good one.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Much love, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
Bye.